Hey, this is Dr. Scott, chiropractor, health coach, and I love fitness too. And I'm here today with Steve Irsay, who's a licensed professional counselor. And, we came together to do this interview because we realize that there's a lot of stress out there in the community, mental stress and also physical stress. And I really just wanted to get another professional's perspective on those things to help provide some clarity and guidance for both of our clients and hopefully provide some great value. Steve has got a particular passion and interest in helping men manage stress in the different roles of their life, like being a parent or a provider or an entrepreneur. Um, and so, Steve, you just want to, introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate you setting this up. I really appreciate being able to speak to folks and also hear other perspectives and other professionals. So yeah, I'm a licensed professional counselor here in Austin. I do individual therapy and coaching with adults. I also do some work with older teens, high school age teens, particular specialty in working with men. And as you mentioned, kind of the way I look at it is looking at kind of the main roles that we often play in life. So as you mentioned, sort of partner, parent, provider, entrepreneur, creator. I think it's a really helpful way to sort of organize our experience around kind of these different roles. I also think that those roles are where we end up experiencing a lot of stress in our lives. And so it's a really helpful way to sort of look at the picture and help people in sort of maximizing their performance and experience in those different really important areas in their life.
Awesome. And I know specifically, I have a number of, men clients
Mm-hmm.
who are entrepreneurs, have their own business. And I know that a lot of us right now are experiencing particular stress.
Sure.
Is, you know, what, what can you share with us as far as like what causes that mental stress in that role, I suppose, as like an entrepreneur or a father?
Sure.
And, what can we do, or what's something that could make a
Sure.
difference?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when it comes to what causes it, right? So when it comes to stress, right, there are stressors. Those are the things in the environment and in the outside world that impact upon us that we then have the internal experience of stress. So it's important just to make that distinction first of all, right? So when we're talking about what can we do about the stuff, a lot of the work that I end up doing with folks is to first of all be clear on those distinctions. Are you trying to work on some stuff out there? In which case that's looking at changes you can make in your situation, in your environment, in the way your life is situated. Sometimes there's work to be done there. Very often the work that's really to be done and we can get to most quickly and effectively is the internal work. So, because whatever's going on out there has to filter in through something and then be experienced internally, mentally, and physically, right? This is just a fundamental truth. So, really, in terms of targeting stress from that perspective, it comes down to, I think, two things. I'm very much about mind body, right? They're both connected. Last time I checked, right? We're not floating heads, and we're not just kind of like, these sort of meat hanging and walking around without a head on us, right? So the two are connected. So you got to look at both. So when it comes to the mental, it's about beliefs and thinking. Specifically, what I find in working with guys is we all kind of live by these unspoken rules. We don't even realize we have them oftentimes. They're just so innate. I was trying to think of a good example of this before we started talking. And it's almost like, since we're doing a recorded thing right now, we're both going to watch this and see what we look like and sound like on recording. And we're going to go, oh, wow. Right? It's almost like when you hear your voice recorded, right? It sounds kind of weird sometimes. At least I know it does for me. And yet I use my voice and hear it every day, but that's the point. It's so innate and I'm so used to it. And I have this internal perception of what I sound like that when I hear it from the outside, it's like, oh, that sounds kind of different. And so it's the same thing with kind of beliefs and thinking. We're sort of living through them, so we can't even see them. Another good example, the glasses on my face. When I first put them on, I sort of noticed that they're there for a second or two, but by the time I'm talking with you, second nature, I don't even see them. Same thing with beliefs, right? So we have ideas about ourselves, about the world, about what we should be, what we must be, what we have to do, the way things work. And they're so innate, we don't even notice them. That's one of the biggest drivers of stress. Those things can often be very limiting, very tight, rigid, oppressive even. And so that creates a lot of stress. The body piece, very quickly, is basically, we often live very disconnected from our bodies, meaning we're not very aware of what's going on from the neck down, from a pure kind of like sensory feel perspective, right? So unless we're kind of directed to pay attention to it, I'm not really aware of what's going on in my left foot typically, unless I stop for a minute and say, let me check in and see what's going on with my left foot. Oh, interesting. It's kind of bent a little bit under the table. I feel a little bit of pressure in this point or that, right? Our body is constantly storing stress. And this is something I'm sure you can speak to very thoughtfully, right? But if we're constantly storing it and not aware of what's going on there, it creates just kind of this feedback loop between the mind and the body. Tension in the mind leads to tension in the body. Tension in the body then tells the mind, uh-oh, there's a problem here. And so the two just ping back and forth for this sort of a loop of stress that you can get caught in. And so really it's essential to target both. And I kind of work with folks to kind of toggle between those two and ultimately integrate their approach.
That's awesome. I think that's really pivotal. A couple of things that you said is really helping people to identify a distinction between what's going outside of themselves versus how we are creating it inside of ourselves and how it shows up. I mean, that's huge, because even I get stuck in the trap of, oh, this thing happened to me, right? When it's an external thing that doesn't necessarily have to or need to create stress, but that's how I'm responding to it.
Absolutely. So I'd really be curious now to hear kind of your thoughts on it, because, you know, in terms of the body piece of it, I think that's certainly an area that you spend a lot of time, right, looking at and trying to help people with sort of health and wellness. And so I was kind of curious from your experience, you know, what are some of the ways that you see that the sort of the body, you know, either stores or kind of shows that it's been kind of holding stress, particularly, you know, over periods of time, if it's not being kind of managed and worked through, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's, you know, it's not that difficult, and you can just look at somebody and tell, because what goes on between our ears, it shows up in what I look for in people's posture, right? So it could be physical trauma or stress, like sitting in front of a computer all day, working really, really hard, like leaning forward, head shifted forward, hands at the keyboard, tap, tap, tap. That's going to put some physical stress. But usually this physical stress is showing up as a result of what's going on in our head. So we're pushing to meet a deadline because of X. There's stress, and that shows up in our body as forward head posture, forward hump of our upper back, forward rolled shoulders. And then this body manifests headaches, neck pain, neck tension, shoulder pain, mid-back pain.
Yeah.
And then if you add on depression on top of that, I mean, what does a depressed person look like? When you look at them, they're like this. They're humped, they're forward, their head's down. And how do you think that's impacting the structure of their spine, the musculature, the strength and vitality in their body? I mean, they're interlinked completely.
Yeah.
And so we actually know now both have an influence on one thing. So when you're working on the mind and you shift them into a less stressful state, their posture is going to perk up and look better. And vice versa. Even if they're mentally stressed, when we work through their posture and get them to perk up, it does that feedback loop from the body back to the brain, and it changes the neurochemicals. It also changes the hormones. And so both things are super pivotal for health and wellness to get a very well-rounded approach, because you can really create an amazing experience for somebody working from the body towards the brain and mind, and from the mind and brain towards the body all at the same time, which is really cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. I love this idea of almost like a body first approach, you know, because sometimes it can be hard to access the mind piece, you know, in a productive way if we're just really kind of in the weeds or just sort of very stuck in some real conditioned mental habits and patterns. But, you know, I think there's such a powerful connection between physical movement and mental and emotional movement, right? And we know this, it's been well documented and demonstrated. And so, you know, one of the things I'll talk to people about is if you're wanting to change mind state or posture of the mind. I like that, you know, you do a lot of work around posture. I use the word posture all the time with clients to talk about mental postures and emotional postures. It's essentially a stance, right?
Yep.
that you take mentally or emotionally. And so a lot of times the way to sort of pivot some of that stuff, because it's hard to access it directly, but one way to do that is to sort of enter through the gateway of sort of body movement, motion, changing your physiology, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And then that sort of just kind of loosens it up and gives you access that you didn't have before.
Awesome.
So I think that's a really, really awesome point, and that synergy piece. So, one thing that I would recommend, since you asked me about things people could do right now, two of my favorite things, if I could share them with you real quick.
You bet.
I'll start with the body piece in honor of body first approach, right? So one of my favorite things personally and to share with people is any sort of body scan, if you're familiar with that at all, from meditation, disciplines and practices, but you don't have to do any sort of formal version of it. Body scan is really just finding your attention. And I sometimes describe attention as it's sort of like this flashlight of your awareness. What you shine it on is what you're going to see with your senses, right? So what you put your focus on is what's going to basically come into your field of awareness more clearly and crisply. So basically what you're doing is you're taking this flashlight of your attention and you're sort of scanning it up and down your body slowly and intentionally. What's going on the top of my head? What's going on in my face, around my eyes, my jaw? What's going on with my neck, right? You're doing this silently in your mind, but you're sort of taking this flashlight, turning it inward. And first of all, it's fascinating. If you've never done it, it's just an amazing experience. I still remember the first time I ever did it. I just discovered all this stuff that was going on in my body all the time that I wasn't aware of. The other cool thing about it is it's inherently relaxing. You can sort of focus your attention on a body part and you'll experience this sort of softening. You can even pair it with a verbal prompt like soft, ease, relax, melt. I use the word melt for myself. And you'll feel this sort of melting and softening. And so it's just this really wonderful, relaxing experience. So it's twofold. One, it's relaxing in and of itself. And two, it cultivates that body awareness that I was talking about.
That's
my other favorite activity, it's a staple. It's a common one, but I still like to go over it with people, and that's gratitude practice. I think it's one of the most powerful mental and emotional medicines there is out there. I think it has such healing powers for anxiety, depression, and really what's amazing about it, and the way I describe it simply to people, is it's basically just getting connected with positive reality. It's not sugarcoating, it's not denying, it's not trying to minimize things, it's not trying to put our head in the sand, it's not trying to be, rose-colored glasses. It's just reconnecting with positive reality that's happening. And it has tremendous impact. It can work quickly, and it's an easy practice to pick up and use on a regular basis. There are some common pitfalls with it, so I often will talk to people about how to actually do it, because I think there are some common misconceptions, and so that's something I love working with people on. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, would love to talk with you more about it, give you some tips and some guidance on it, but those would be my two go-to things if I had to pick two.
awesome. If people, are interested in working with you, how might they get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. Email, website. You can email me through my website, but it's basically steveirsay.com, STEVEIRSAY.com. And shoot me a note, send me a message. Would love to just chat with you, see what's going on, see how I could be of help to you.
Awesome. Great. And I'll make sure that we put that stuff in the description below the video. So if anybody wants to reach out, they can.
Awesome.
Do you have any closing comments or closing remarks before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I would just say, again, thank you for reaching out and doing this, Scott. I appreciate it. And I would say one of the other things that I really love doing is I love working with guys, because I think sometimes there's still some difficulties with, I think, acceptance and understanding around common ways guys deal with stress. I think a lot of times people will see some of the behaviors, either other people will see it or guys themselves will experience it and, just feel, discouraged or guilty or ashamed, and it's really about first feeling understood and accepted that, any of the habits that we might be using, or behaviors to deal with stress, they're really signs of, some sort of pain or struggle that we're having. And so having someone who can be understanding and supportive of that in a non-judgmental way, I prize that. I've experienced it, and it's been tremendously healing. And it's sort of what I'm passionate about, is sitting with another guy and really being like, I get it. I understand what that's about. And for them to feel understood and heard is such a powerful first experience. And it's the gateway to all the other great skill development and work they want to do. But my hope is that all people can experience that sense of acceptance of kind of who they are and how they are, with the understanding that acceptance leads to change. But it has to start with accepting exactly who we are and how we are. And that's something huge I work on with everybody. And it's such an honor to be able to provide that to people. You know, it's one of the greatest joys of what I do.
It's awesome. I really get your commitment and passion to helping other men. That's huge. So I just want to say thank you for providing that for our community. And, you know, hopefully we have been able to provide some value to those folks out here. We got to cut this off. Thank you, Steve, for being here. Appreciate you.
Got it, brother. Take care.
You
Hey everybody, thank you for watching. I hope you got some value out of that. If you would like Steve's information, we'll post it below in the description. And here's a subscribe button if you did get some value. Please share and share and subscribe to the channel for more valuable information. And then here's some other videos for you to watch. See ya.